You always hear about these things happening to other people. It's the sort of story you share over a glass of wine with your best friend, shaking your head, saying, I could never be with someone who cheats. You tell yourself that you'd know. You're smarter than that. Wiser. More observant. Well, I was one of those people, too. I was the woman who thought she had everything under control until I didn't. It started innocuously enough, the way these things often do. My husband, Ryan, had always been a hard worker. That was one of the things I loved about him, in fact. His drive, his ambition. The way he dove headfirst into every task, be it work or the elaborate meals he loved to cook on weekends. We weren't that picture-perfect couple on Instagram, God knows I don't have the patience to curate that, but we were solid. At least, I thought we were. The first inkling that something was off came in the form of a phone call. It was a Thursday evening, and Ryan had told me he'd be working late again. He worked in finance, and his new boss, Erica, had been pushing him hard to prove himself in some kind of company reorganization. I didn't mind at first, we were both busy with our careers. I had my own marketing firm, so I knew the pressures of deadlines and demanding clients. But lately, the late nights had become more frequent. Too frequent. I was halfway through a bottle of red wine and one episode into a trashy reality TV show when Ryan called. Hey, babe, just wanted to let you know I'm running a bit later than expected. Erica's got us knee-deep in budget projections, he said. His voice was casual, calm, like he was talking about the weather. It was normal enough. Except for one thing. In the background, I could hear faint laughter. A woman's laughter. Oh, sure, I replied, keeping my tone light. Are you still at the office? Yeah, of course. Where else would I be? His response was immediate, but there was something off. Something a little too quick about the way he said it. I've known Ryan long enough to pick up on his tells, and this one practically screamed guilty. I didn't push it, though. I didn't ask who was laughing in the background or why I could hear what sounded suspiciously like glasses clinking together. Instead, I played it cool. Okay, well, don't work too hard. I'll probably be asleep by the time you get home, I said. Yeah, you should get some rest. Love you, babe. He hung up before I could say anything more, leaving me staring at the screen of my phone, my wine glass suspended in midair. Now, here's the thing, I'm not the jealous type. I'm not the kind of woman who stalks her partner's social media or checks his phone for suspicious messages. But something about that phone call, about the laughter I wasn't supposed to hear, about the way he rushed off the line, it planted a seed of doubt. And once that seed was planted, it started to grow. The next few days, I did my best to ignore it. I chalked it up to my overactive imagination. Work stress. Maybe I was just feeling neglected because we hadn't spent much time together lately. It happens, right? But the more I tried to push it aside, the more that nagging feeling gnawed at me. A week later, I accidentally found a clue I hadn't been looking for. Ryan had left his phone on the kitchen counter while he was in the shower. Normally, I wouldn't give it a second glance, but as I was cleaning up after breakfast, it buzzed. A notification popped up on the screen, and there it was, ***, a message from Erica, ***. Last night was amazing. Can't wait to do it again, winky face. I froze, spatula in hand, staring at the screen like it had suddenly sprouted fangs. Amazing? Again, the smiley face winked at me like a smug little gremlin. My heart skipped a beat, but I didn't immediately jump to conclusions. I mean, it could have been an innocent message. Maybe they'd had some sort of team-building event or an after-work dinner. Maybe amazing referred to closing some big deal. Maybe the winking emoji was just friendly? Who the hell was I kidding? I didn't touch the phone, though. I'm not proud of it, but I did the stereotypical thing. I stared at it like it held the answers to the universe, but I didn't unlock it. I didn't swipe. Instead, I let it buzz again and then again, watching the notifications from Erica pile up, each one more damning than the last. If Ryan hadn't left the shower just then, I might have done something I couldn't take back. Hey, babe, where's the coffee? Ryan's voice called out as he walked into the kitchen, towel draped around his neck, hair still wet. Oh, right here, I stammered, turning away from his phone as though it hadn't just been waving its little red flag of infidelity in my face. I handed him his mug, and for a moment, I considered saying something. Asking him outright. But I didn't. Instead, I smiled, took a deep breath, and decided that I was going to find out the truth before making any moves. If Ryan was cheating, I wasn't going to let him wriggle out of it with half-hearted excuses and weak apologies. I wanted the whole picture, the undeniable truth, the irrefutable evidence. If my marriage was going to implode, it was going to do so on my terms. And so, I went into detective mode. The next few days were a blur of quiet observation and subtle maneuvering. I didn't want Ryan to know I suspected anything, so I played my role as the loving wife perfectly. I smiled at him over dinner, kissed him goodbye in the mornings, and pretended that everything was normal. Meanwhile, I was carefully piecing together the puzzle behind his back. My best friend, Jessica, was a private investigator. It was one of those weird perks of knowing someone for most of your life. You know exactly who to call when you need to track someone's movements without them knowing. Jessica wasn't the kind of PI who lurked in shadows or wore trench coats. No, she was the tech-savvy type who could hack into phone records and email accounts with ease. And lucky for me, she owed me a favor. When I called her, it wasn't an emotional breakdown. It wasn't the kind of dramatic conversation where I sobbed into the phone, begging for help. No, I was calm, rational. I laid out the facts, told her about the suspicious text from Erica, and asked her to help me gather the information I needed. Lily, are you sure you want to go down this road? Jessica asked, her voice a mix of concern and curiosity. I have to know, Jess. I can't confront him without proof, and I'm not going to sit here and be made a fool of. Not by him. And certainly not by her, I replied, my voice firmer than I felt. There was a pause on the other end of the line. All right. I'll help. But you have to promise me you're ready for whatever you find. I didn't hesitate. I'm ready. 2 days later, Jessica had everything I needed. Ryan had been emailing Erica from his work account, but he was smart enough not to use his personal phone for anything incriminating. Too bad for him, he wasn't smart enough to delete his work messages. Jessica had hacked into his account and forwarded me the emails that confirmed what I had already suspected. The affair wasn't just physical. It was emotional, too. The messages were full of inside jokes, personal anecdotes, and confessions that made me feel like I was reading someone else's love story. Only it wasn't someone else. It was my husband. The man I'd spent the last 7 years building a life with. And there he was, telling Erica things he hadn't told me in months. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the emails, but when I finally looked up, I wasn't sad. I wasn't heartbroken. I was furious. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw things. But most of all, I wanted revenge. That night, when Ryan came home, I smiled at him like nothing had changed. I kissed him hello, asked him how his day was, and pretended like I didn't know he'd spent his lunch break at a hotel with his boss. He had no idea that I knew everything. But I didn't just want him to know I knew. I wanted him to feel the same gut-wrenching betrayal I'd felt when I'd read those emails. I wanted to catch him in the act. I wanted to expose both him and Erica for what they were, a pair of liars who thought they could have their cake and eat it, too. So, I started planning. I wasn't just going to confront Ryan. Oh no, that would be too easy, too satisfying for him. He'd apologize, promise to change, maybe even cry. And then what? I'd be the crazy, jealous wife, and he'd get off with nothing more than a slap on the wrist. No. I needed something bigger. Something that would leave a lasting impression on both of them. I was going to set a trap. And when it snapped shut, it would take down not just Ryan, but Erica, too. The best part? They would never see it coming. Chapter 2, The Setup. There's a saying that goes, revenge is a dish best served cold. Well, I had every intention of serving mine ice cold, with a side of karma. But it wasn't going to be some dramatic outburst or a messy confrontation where I ended up crying into a box of tissues. No. I wanted something clean, something smart, and something they'd never forget. If Ryan and Erica thought they could play me, they clearly underestimated just how much I love winning. So, I began crafting a plan. A plan so meticulous, so perfectly orchestrated, that by the time it unraveled, they'd be too entangled in their own mess to even know how it happened. And, as the cherry on top, the entire thing would be witnessed by their colleagues, their friends, people they'd spent years impressing. When it was over, they wouldn't just be embarrassed, they'd be ruined. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First things first, I needed to confirm their next little rendezvous without raising suspicion. Thankfully, that was easier than I expected. Ryan, bless his cheating heart, had gotten cocky. He was no longer bothering to hide things as carefully as he had in the beginning. He thought he was in the clear because I wasn't asking any questions, and that's exactly what I needed him to think. After Jessica hacked into Ryan's emails, I kept an eye on his communications with Erica. Their messages were full of mundane work talk during the day, but the real gems came in the late afternoons and evenings. One particular email caught my eye. It was from Erica to Ryan, confirming their work dinner that Friday at a boutique hotel downtown. I had to laugh at how brazen they'd become. Erica even included a note about how much she was looking forward to seeing him out of the office. Asterisk, out of the office, huh? Well, Erica, you're about to get more than you bargained for, asterisk. That hotel was going to be the scene of their downfall. Now, I knew I couldn't go into this alone. I needed help, specifically from someone with a talent for snooping in the digital world. Enter Jessica, my private investigator bestie, and co-conspirator extraordinaire. When I explained what I had in mind, Jessica was all in. So, let me get this straight, she said, as she sipped her coffee at our favorite cafe. You want to trap them in a hotel room and expose them in front of their coworkers? Not just expose them, I corrected, grinning. I want to humiliate them. This isn't just about Ryan cheating. It's about the fact that they think they're untouchable. I want them to lose everything. Jessica gave me a slow, approving nod. I like where your head's at. So, how do we do this? Well, I've been thinking about the logistics, I said, leaning in conspiratorially. Ryan and Erica think they're going to have a nice, quiet dinner at the hotel, followed by a night of illicit romance. But what if, instead of romance, they find themselves at the center of a corporate scandal? Jessica raised an eyebrow. Go on. Here's what I'm thinking. Erica's company where Ryan works has a big corporate event coming up. They've been planning it for months. It's supposed to be a major networking opportunity, with executives from all over the industry attending. If I can time this right, I can get them to that hotel room while the event is happening in the same building. We'll set up hidden cameras, catch them in the act, and stream the footage to the event. In front of everyone. Jessica nearly spit out her coffee. Holy hell, Lily. That's genius. Thank you, I said with a satisfied grin. It's all about timing. I just need to get the pieces in place. Jessica was on board, and with her technical expertise, we began working out the details. The hotel was hosting both the company event and the private dinner that Erica had arranged. It was the perfect opportunity to set the trap. We didn't have to get them into the right place, they were already planning to be there. All I needed to do was set up the technology and ensure the right audience saw the show. Our first step was to plant the cameras. Jessica, being the tech wizard she is, knew exactly where to get high-quality, discrete cameras that could stream live video without raising any alarms. The best part? The hotel already had a security system in place, so we just needed to piggyback off their setup. The cameras would be placed in the hotel suite where Erica and Ryan would meet thanks to a little behind-the-scenes manipulation. I made a quick call to the hotel's event coordinator, pretending to be Erica's assistant, and confirmed the suite for them. It was too easy. Once the cameras were set, we turned our attention to the company event. Erica's company was big on presentations, and part of the evening was dedicated to a live-streamed speech from the CEO. Perfect. That meant we could interrupt the stream without anyone noticing until it was too late. Okay, Jessica said, scrolling through the blueprints of the hotel's AV system. We're in. I've got access to the network. We can stream the feed from the hotel room directly to the screens at the event with the press of a button. I felt a rush of excitement as the plan started to come together. And they'll have no idea what hit them. The next part of the plan involved getting Ryan to the hotel without raising suspicion. Thankfully, I didn't have to lift a finger. He was already under the impression that I'd be out of town that weekend for a conference. I had told him about it weeks ago, and he hadn't bothered to remember the details, probably too preoccupied with Erica's schedule. So when I reminded him that I'd be gone on Friday night, he didn't think twice. Oh, right. You're going to Chicago, right? Ryan asked absent-mindedly as he packed for his work trip. Yeah, I replied, smiling sweetly. I'll be back Sunday evening. I watched him closely as he zipped up his suitcase. He didn't even blink. The man was so sure of himself, so convinced that he was getting away with his little affair, that he didn't bother to check his phone when I mentioned my trip. Perfect. Friday came, and everything was in place. I had to admit, I felt a certain thrill as I prepared for what was about to happen. It was like standing on the edge of a cliff, knowing that once I jumped, there was no going back, but also knowing that the landing would be spectacular. Jessica and I checked into a room at the same hotel, several floors above where Ryan and Erica would meet. We had our laptops, cameras, and a direct feed to the event's AV system. From the safety of our room, we could watch everything unfold. It was almost laughably easy to get them into the right place. Erica had already reserved a suite under her name, and Ryan arrived on time, looking smug and self-assured. They were meeting for dinner at the hotel's upscale restaurant, but we knew exactly where they'd end up after their meal. By the time they finished dinner, it was already dark outside. From our vantage point in the hotel room, we could see them making their way to the suite. Ryan had his arm around Erica's waist, and they were both laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. I could almost taste the sweet satisfaction of what was about to happen. As soon as they stepped into the suite, the cameras we'd planted went live. Jessica gave me a nod, and I knew it was time. Ready? She asked, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Do it, I said, my heart pounding with anticipation. Jessica pressed a key, and the live feed from the suite switched to the event's presentation screens. It was seamless. One moment, the attendees were watching a perfectly normal corporate event, and the next, they were watching Ryan and Erica stumble into bed together. I couldn't help but laugh as I imagined the reaction from the audience. The stunned silence. The gasps. The awkward shuffling in seats as people tried to process what they were seeing. The event had executives from Erica's company, key clients, and even a few potential investors. It was a who's who of the finance world, and now they were all watching Erica and Ryan, very much out of the office. Meanwhile, in the suite, Ryan and Erica had no idea they were being broadcasted. They were too wrapped up in each other to notice the tiny cameras hidden in the room. I watched them for a few more seconds, then switched back to the event feed, where people were starting to react. Whispers turned into shocked exclamations. Phones were out, recording the spectacle. The CEO, who had been speaking at the time, looked completely flabbergasted. Okay, I said, leaning back with a satisfied smile. That should do it. Jessica grinned at me. I'd say that went better than expected. We left the hotel shortly after, our mission accomplished. By the time Ryan and Erica realized what had happened, it was too late. The damage was done. The video was already spreading online, and both of them were about to face the consequences of their actions. But the best part? I wasn't done yet. Before I walked out of the hotel, I made one last phone call to a lawyer. Because while Ryan and Erica were dealing with the fallout from their public humiliation, I was going to make sure they both paid for what they'd done. And that was only the beginning. I had a few more tricks up my sleeve. Chapter 3: The Sting Operation. The aftermath of the hotel fiasco was nothing short of delicious. I imagined Ryan and Erica scrambling for their clothes, realizing too late that their private rendezvous had been broadcast to an audience of high-ranking executives and industry leaders. The thought alone was enough to make me smile for days. But, of course, I couldn't let it end there. The fallout from their little escapade was still unfolding, and I was nowhere near finished. I had anticipated a swift reaction, and I was right. The video of Ryan and Erica in their most compromising position spread like wildfire. By the time I checked my phone the next morning, it was all over the internet. I didn't need to search for it popped up in my newsfeed under Corporate Scandal Rocks Finance Giant, with a blurry still image of two familiar figures plastered beneath the headline. I was giddy, like a kid waking up on Christmas morning, except instead of unwrapping presents, I was watching the slow-motion collapse of two people who'd wronged me. I didn't feel a shred of guilt. Why should I? They'd played their game, and now it was time to deal with the consequences. Still, as satisfying as the public exposure had been, I knew this was only the first act. My plan had layers, and now it was time to peel back the next one. It was mid-morning when Ryan finally called. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, and his name flashed across the screen. I took my time answering, letting it ring just long enough to make him sweat a little more. When I picked up, I plastered on my best oblivious wife voice. "Hey, babe," I answered sweetly. "Everything okay?" For a second, there was nothing but ragged breathing on the other end of the line. Then came Ryan's voice, strained and panicked. "Lily. We need to talk." I could almost see him pacing the room, running a hand through his hair the way he did when he was nervous. Good. Let him stew. Talk about what? I asked, forcing as much innocent curiosity into my voice as I could muster. About last night, Ryan stammered, his words tripping over each other. Something happened. Oh? I kept my tone light, like we were discussing what to have for dinner. What happened? There was a pause, and I could feel his hesitation through the phone. He didn't want to say it. He didn't want to confess, even now. The coward. But I had to give him credit, he'd had a hell of a shock, and I couldn't blame him for struggling to explain. Lily, he stopped again, took a deep breath, then started over. There was a video. At the hotel. Someone hacked into the security system or something, and, Erica and I. His voice trailed off, leaving the rest unsaid. He was waiting for me to respond, for me to react, but I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of an emotional breakdown. Instead, I let the silence stretch between us, as thick and uncomfortable as I could make it. Finally, I sighed. Ryan, I said, in the calmest voice I could manage, I know. You what? I know, I repeated, each word slow and deliberate. About you and Erica. About the hotel. About the emails. I've known for a while. The line went silent again. This time, it wasn't because Ryan was scrambling for an explanation. He was too stunned to speak. For a man who'd thought he could juggle two lives without dropping the ball, this must have felt like the world was crumbling around him. You knew? His voice was barely a whisper. I smiled, though he couldn't see it. Oh, I knew. I just didn't say anything, because I wanted to make sure I had all my facts straight before I did. You know how thorough I like to be. I could practically hear his brain short-circuiting. This wasn't the reaction he'd expected. He was probably hoping for tears, accusations, maybe even screaming. Instead, he was met with cold, calculated precision, and I knew it was driving him mad. Lily, he started again, but I cut him off. Save it, Ryan. I don't need your apologies, and I definitely don't need your excuses. You made your bed literally, and now you get to lie in it. Alone. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. So, what happens now? I let the question hang in the air for a moment before answering. What happens now? Well, for starters, I've already contacted a lawyer. The divorce papers should be arriving soon. I think we can both agree that there's nothing left to save here, right? Divorce? Ryan sounded panicked again, like the word alone had slapped him across the face. Lily, wait, can't we talk about this? I know I messed up, but we can fix it. We've been together for so long, Fix it? I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Ryan, you've been sleeping with your boss for months. What exactly do you think there is to fix? I was going to end it, he pleaded. I swear, I was going to break it off with her. I didn't mean for this to happen. I rolled my eyes. Of course he didn't. None of them ever do. But by now, I wasn't even angry. Just tired. Tired of the lies, the deceit, the pathetic attempts at justification. Well, Ryan, it did happen. And now you get to live with the consequences. Consider this your notice. I'll be staying at the house until the papers are finalized. You can find somewhere else to live. Lily, please. I think we're done here, I said, cutting him off for the last time. Good luck, Ryan. You're going to need it. With that, I hung up and stared at the phone for a moment, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. Part of me had expected this to feel more victorious. But in the end, it just felt like the inevitable conclusion to something that had been unraveling for a long time. Ryan and I hadn't been truly happy for months, maybe even years. I had just been too focused on my own life to notice, and he'd taken the coward's way out. But while I had no intention of wasting any more tears on him, I wasn't quite done with Erica. I didn't expect to hear from Erica. I assumed she'd be too busy trying to salvage what was left of her reputation after the hotel scandal. The video had gone viral, and it wasn't long before her bosses at the company caught wind of it. It's hard to maintain authority when you've been publicly outed as the woman sleeping with your subordinate, especially when that subordinate's wife is connected to a few powerful people in the industry. That's right. I hadn't just set the trap for Ryan and Erica out of personal revenge, I'd done it with a bit of professional savvy, too. The CEO of Erica's company was someone I'd worked with briefly in the past, and while we weren't exactly close, we had enough of a rapport that I felt comfortable forwarding him the video. Strictly off the record, of course. It didn't take long for the consequences to roll in. Ryan had been placed on administrative leave pending a formal review. That was corporate speak for "you're getting fired, but we need to figure out how to do it without making us look bad." Erica, on the other hand, was in much deeper water. The scandal had sparked an internal investigation, and it wasn't long before rumors started swirling about other questionable behavior on her part. Misuse of company funds, inappropriate relationships with other employees, the works. I hadn't even needed to push. The house of cards was already collapsing, and all I had to do was watch from the sidelines. 2 days after the video went viral, I got a phone call. This time, it was Erica on the other end. "Lily, we need to talk." There was something gratifying about hearing her voice crack under the pressure. Gone was the confident, polished boss who thought she could have anything and anyone she wanted. Now, she was just a desperate woman trying to keep her life from falling apart. "Oh, I don't think we do," I said, keeping my tone light. "You're not exactly my favorite person right now." "Lily, please," Erica said, her voice tight with frustration. "I know what you did. You think you're so clever, don't you? Setting me up like that, ruining my career dash." I cut her off with a laugh. "I ruined your career? Oh no, sweetie. You did that all by yourself. I just gave everyone a front row seat." "You have no idea what you've done," she hissed. "You think this is over? I'll sue you for defamation. I'll dash." "Oh, please." I waved a hand dismissively, even though she couldn't see it. "Don't waste your breath. You know as well as I do that you don't have a leg to stand on. The video doesn't lie, Erica. And I have a feeling your bosses are going to find out a lot more about you before this is all over." She fell silent, and I could hear the faint sound of her breathing, shallow and uneven. Good. She was scared. She should be. "You know," I said after a pause, "you really should have been more careful. Sleeping with your subordinate? And during a corporate event, no less? I mean, that's just bad decision-making." "Lily, please," Erica said again, this time quieter. "I'll do anything. Just call off the investigation. You've already humiliated me. Isn't that enough?" I paused, savoring the moment. There was a part of me that wanted to twist the knife, to drag this out and make her squirm a little longer. But I wasn't a monster. I wasn't like her. And besides, I had already won. "I'll tell you what," I said, leaning back in my chair. "I'm not going to interfere with the investigation. What happens to you from here on out is up to your company. But I will tell you this, I'm done with you. As far as I'm concerned, you're already out of my life." I could practically feel her deflate on the other end of the line. "I hope it was worth it," I said with one final jab. "Because you've lost everything." And with that, I hung up. In the weeks that followed, the fallout continued. Ryan was formally fired, his career in shambles. Erica's investigation revealed more skeletons in her closet than anyone expected, and she was unceremoniously let go from the company. They had both tried to keep their affair a secret, but now, it was all out in the open for the world to see. As for me, I was already moving on. The divorce papers were filed, and I had no intention of dragging things out. Ryan could keep his secrets, his lies, and his regrets. I was walking away clean, with my head held high. I'd gotten my revenge. Now it was time to start fresh. And as I looked ahead, I couldn't help but feel a sense of freedom. The kind of freedom that comes from knowing that, no matter what happens, you're in control of your own life. And I wasn't about to let anyone take that from me again. Chapter 4: Aftermath and Sweet Revenge. There's something oddly serene about the final stages of a well-executed plan. The moment when everything clicks into place and the dust begins to settle, leaving behind the unmistakable clarity of victory. For weeks, I had envisioned this moment, the aftermath of my meticulously crafted revenge, and now, as I sipped my morning coffee, watching the city skyline from my new apartment, I felt that satisfaction wash over me like a calm sea. The chaos I had unleashed had fully run its course. Ryan's and Erica's lives had become a swirling vortex of scandal, job loss, and public disgrace. And now, finally, they were left to pick up the broken pieces. I had expected a sense of euphoria when this day arrived, the day after the final blow had been struck, but instead, I felt something more unexpected: peace. I took another sip of coffee, relishing in the quietness of my new place. It was a sleek two-bedroom apartment downtown, smaller than the house Ryan and I had shared, but it was all mine. The process of moving had been surprisingly quick once I decided to officially cut ties. The divorce papers were filed, Ryan had moved out of the house, and I had no intention of keeping the home filled with memories of deception. The move had felt like a fresh start, and I was already making the space my own. I'd hung up art I had bought for myself, filled the shelves with books I'd actually read, and planted greenery on the balcony. I'd even adopted a cat, a sassy little tabby named Olive, who was currently napping on the window ledge, seemingly unconcerned with the chaos that had just unraveled in my life. Smart cat. As I watched Olive stretch lazily in the sunlight, I couldn't help but reflect on everything that had led to this moment. I had made my move, played my cards with precision, and now the fallout was complete. Ryan was gone. Erica was destroyed. And I was free. The best part was that they had no idea just how deeply the knife had been twisted. They probably thought the public humiliation, the job losses, and the viral scandal had been the peak of their punishment. Oh, how wrong they were. Ryan had tried to salvage his career, of course. After being placed on administrative leave, he had launched into damage control mode, doing everything he could to spin this situation. He had always been good at that, talking his way out of sticky situations, charming people with that boy-next-door smile, convincing them that he was the victim of unfortunate circumstances. But this time, charm and smooth talking wouldn't save him. The investigation into Erica's behavior at the company had revealed more than just her affair with Ryan. It turned out she had been mismanaging funds for months, funneling company resources into personal expenses, luxury vacations, high-end shopping sprees, and, most damning of all, paying for Ryan's fancy hotels and dinners. The financial impropriety had sent shockwaves through the company. The affair might have been a scandal, but this was career-ending. Erica had been fired, of course, and the company had quietly begun legal proceedings to recover the lost funds. Meanwhile, Ryan had been caught in the crossfire. His involvement with Erica wasn't just a personal embarrassment, it had made him complicit in the financial mess she had created. When the company announced his termination, they made it clear that his association with Erica had rendered him unfit to represent the firm's values. The news hit the industry fast. Word spread among finance circles, and within days, Ryan was blacklisted. No respectable firm wanted to hire someone who had been caught in such a public scandal, let alone someone who had been implicated in corporate fraud. His once promising career had crumbled into dust. But Ryan? He didn't stop there. As desperate men do, he tried to fix it, frantically emailing old contacts, trying to secure interviews at smaller firms. I knew this because Jessica, ever the loyal friend and investigator, had kept tabs on him for me. She'd sent me screenshots of Ryan's increasingly desperate job applications, each more pitiful than the last. Apparently, he was even considering a job at a shady financial startup, the kind that skirted regulations and teetered on the edge of legality. It was a fitting place for him. Then there was Erica. If Ryan's downfall had been spectacular, Erica's was nothing short of a train wreck. After her firing, she had tried to keep a low profile, avoiding the media and deleting her social media accounts in an attempt to escape the public eye. But the internet never forgets, and every time she tried to move on, the scandal resurfaced. Articles were written, gossip blogs speculated about her future, and people shared the infamous video over and over again, each time with a fresh round of humiliating commentary. The worst part, at least for her, was the financial fallout. Erica had been living a lavish lifestyle for years: expensive cars, a designer wardrobe, a luxury apartment. But all of it had been propped up by her position at the company. Without that six-figure salary and the bonuses that came with it, her house of cards collapsed. Rumor had it, she was being forced to sell her apartment to cover her legal fees and the money the company was demanding she repay. Last I heard, she was staying with a friend, though even that seemed temporary. And then, in the most satisfying twist of all, Erica's personal life crumbled along with her professional one. I hadn't realized, in the beginning, just how intertwined Erica's life was with Ryan's. After their affair was exposed, Erica had tried to distance herself from him, hoping that cutting ties would save her reputation. But it turned out that their relationship had been more than just a fling. They had made long-term plans that were now completely unraveling. You see, Erica had been trying to use Ryan as a way to stabilize her own life. She had always been the older, more experienced woman in their dynamic, and she had relied on that to maintain control over him. But when the scandal broke, she lost everything she had used to keep him tethered to her. She couldn't protect him anymore, couldn't offer him the cushy promotions or the financial benefits that had lured him in. And without those, what did they have? A relationship built on lies, manipulation, and lust. So, when Ryan finally realized that Erica was no longer a viable option, when he realized she couldn't save him from the mess they had both created, he dropped her like a bad investment. The irony wasn't lost on me. Ryan, the man who had tried to juggle his marriage and his affair, had ended up with nothing. No wife, no mistress, no job. Just a pile of shattered dreams and a tarnished reputation. The poetic justice of it all was almost too sweet to handle. But here's the kicker, I wasn't done yet. A week after the scandal reached its peak, I received a call from my lawyer, who was handling the divorce proceedings. Ryan, predictably, had been dragging his feet on finalizing the terms. He had tried to negotiate a larger settlement, citing the fact that he was now unemployed and financially vulnerable. I had expected as much, so I had prepared for it. "Lily, I've spoken with Ryan's attorney," my lawyer, Adam, said when he called. "He's pushing for a more favorable split of the assets, given his current situation. He's claiming that he needs more financial support from the divorce settlement, considering that you're still financially stable. I couldn't help but laugh at that. Financially stable? Of course I was stable. Unlike Ryan, I hadn't been reckless with my money or my career. I had built my marketing firm from the ground up, and it was thriving. And now, after everything, he wanted me to bail him out? Adam, I said calmly, make it clear to Ryan's attorney that I'm not interested in negotiating. He can take the original settlement or nothing at all. I'm not paying for his mistakes. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Are you sure? If you want to avoid a lengthy court battle, dash. Adam, trust me, I said firmly. He's not going to take this to court. He can't afford it. Just hold the line. Sure enough, a few days later, Ryan caved. He signed the divorce papers with minimal changes, agreeing to the original terms. I would keep the bulk of our shared assets, including the house, and Ryan wouldn't receive a penny more than what was legally required. He was left with nothing but his personal savings and a tarnished reputation. When the papers finally arrived, signed and sealed, I couldn't help but feel a wave of relief. It was over. Officially, finally, over. I was free from Ryan, free from the betrayal, free from the tangled web of lies he had spun. And, as a final act of closure, I sent him one last parting gift. I knew that Ryan would be receiving the divorce settlement in the mail that afternoon, so I decided to time my message accordingly. It was nothing dramatic, nothing long or drawn out. Just a simple text, one last reminder that I had come out of this stronger, smarter, and victorious. I pulled out my phone, typed out a message, and hit send. Lily, I hope you enjoyed the show, smiley face. In the months that followed, life took on a new kind of rhythm. My firm continued to grow, and I threw myself into my work with a renewed sense of purpose. I had always been good at what I did, but now I had something more: freedom. Freedom from the constant worry, the nagging doubts, the feeling that something was off in my marriage. Now, I was in control. I even started dating again, though I wasn't in any rush to dive into anything serious. I'd been burned once, and I wasn't about to let that happen again. But I was open to new possibilities, to new adventures, and that in itself felt like a victory. As for Ryan, I heard through the grapevine that he had taken a job at a second-rate financial firm, the kind that barely scraped by on shady deals and questionable ethics. It was a far cry from the life he had once envisioned for himself, but it seemed fitting. He had made his choices, and now he was living with the consequences. Erica had vanished from the public eye entirely. Last I heard, she had moved to a different city, trying to rebuild her life away from the scandal. But the internet never forgets, and every now and then, her name would pop up in gossip blogs, a reminder of the woman who had flown too close to the sun. And me? I was better than ever. In the end, I realized that revenge, while sweet, wasn't what had brought me peace. It was the closure, the sense of finality, that had allowed me to move on. Ryan and Erica had tried to tear me down, to play me for a fool. But I had come out on top, stronger and wiser. And as I watched Olive chase a sunbeam across the floor, I couldn't help but smile. I had won. And that, in the end, was all that mattered.